That's it for today. And I'm now standing between you and cocktails and the Ubuntu Lounge. So I'm really going to be quick. I wanted to underscore our thanks to the speakers and to our partners, to Rowan and to Howden in particular, for urging us to play this role. And I just wanted to end with a genuine, heartfelt plea to everybody in the room. The nature of the challenges we have described today are not ones that are capable of being solved in silos. And what has been so interesting about the feedback we've received throughout the day is that there's been a broad and eclectic group of people who've been here with a tremendous array of expertise, and are all coming at this problem from different perspectives. And some people may think of that as a sort of exercise in herding chaotic cats. And I think of that as innovation and fertility that comes in ecosystems. And in fact, the most fertile and innovative things are ecosystems, because they're the places where you can cross-fertilize, where creativity lies. It's in the Venn diagrams of intersections that you often find the most interesting solutions. And if you think for a moment of what we're going to try and do with Reflood, you have to start with taking all the data that this country has. And by the way, I've geeked out on how much data this country keeps on flooding and water. I don't know what it is about the UK, but there's like thousands of years, I kid you not, of data around floods and rivers and river keepers and a whole world out there. But it has this really rich repository of data from all sorts of different sources. And then the insurance industry has this enormous source of data. And it isn't properly put together and coordinated, for sure. And it also hasn't benefited, and we've had conversations with colleagues in Google and elsewhere, from the kind of advances of what AI can do in taking all that data and then muscling in some kind of predictive powers around that data. So we need data, we need landowners, and we've got some of the most important ones you can imagine as part of this coalition, but they're early days. So Royal Society of the Protection of Birds, you're out there, we know you're out there, please join, and others. And then what we want to be able to do is to think about where the optimal places to locate these wetlands, how might they be financed. There's an enormous cottage industry of people who are doing incredibly interesting cutting-edge stuff already in this space, and are doing it at a scale of 25 or 50 or 100 million pounds, that we need to get into hundreds of millions of pounds if we are to try and take this stuff at scale. And then there's measurement, right? So there's really interesting stuff on how we measure carbon with integrity in a non-greenwashy way, how we think about biodiversity net gain and how we monetize it properly, how we do water quality, how we think about the nutrient question in an interesting way. And then there's a whole ecotourism community play around how we go about making sure that these wetlands are sources of economic activity and community ownership. And then before I end, one of the things that I think we do incredibly poorly in our movement is communicate. And we have ceded the communication around the path to net zero to a group of people who are candidly saboteurs. And they're a group of people who spend all the time with a relatively large amount of money, and they don't have the facts, but they can dominate the narrative and dominate the airways, demonizing what we're trying to do, which is really just make this planet habitable for our grandchildren. And it's a scandal that we don't communicate effectively, positively, optimistically, and inclusively around these things. And I think we have to take the communication and the narrative mantle seriously. We can't just be financiers and technocrats. We have to also win the argument. And in order to win the argument, you have to authentically do things that genuinely benefit communities. And you can't treat communities as this post hoc, NIMBY inconvenience that you consult after the fact when you've concocted your plans. I think we have to be more authentic in how we go about engaging with communities and consulting with communities and getting community buy-in and showing communities that these things actually meaningfully benefit them. I'll tell you an anecdote. I went the other day to Norfolk, and there was an incredibly beautiful offshore wind farm off Sheringham that you could look out from the beach in Sheringham onto this wind farm. And they have a little display there which is financed by Equinor and Mubadala. The turbines are done by China something. And then as I went around the corner, carved into the rocks on this beach were the words "vote reform." And they were partly carved into the rocks on that beach, I think, because that community, I am certain, has seen no tangible benefit from those offshore wind farms. In aggregate, they've done an enormous amount for our country, and you've just heard Dan say how important it is. But we haven't yet sort of stitched up the connection between that piece of incredibly important infrastructure with the communities that literally see it from their shores. And so I think joining up that piece of democratic consultation and community engagement with communication and narrative as things that aren't just afterthoughts but are part of the process of doing this is a really important thing. I think not just for our project to try and take wetlands to scale and to show that you can generate this elusive unicorn of an idea of nature of an asset class, and it indeed can be monetized and we can do interesting stuff with it. But it's also part of a kind of practice of what getting to net zero needs to be, which is not pie charts and graphs and abstract ideas that exist in our minds because we geek out and are nerdy about it, as essential as that is. It's part of a way of winning the argument with everybody and bringing them along with us. And so as we do reflood, we're going to try and do that as well. We're not just going to think about the financing and the location and the engineering and all the innovation. We're also going to try and say, can these things be part of owned by communities and benefited by communities and a part of storytelling so that you can go to the both reform but also the climate deniers and say, I reject your premise, you're wrong, you don't have the facts on your side, and what we're doing is something that genuinely benefits people, and people can tell us this because we've engaged with them. They are not consumers, they are our participants and our partners in this endeavor. So we are going to meet as the Insurance Society once a month. It's going to become twice a month because we'll have too much demand. Insurance will never be as sexy, will be sexier all the time. And we really want to enlist all of you to please come and participate and collaborate. Nobody owns this. It's our collective effort. We're just wanting to use the convening power of the Conduit to bring us together and to stimulate innovation and to see all the flowers that can bloom. We will try and create some structure and discipline around the wetlands thing because we think it's a really good idea. But we're trying to create fertility amongst all of us en route. So with that, I end. Thank you so much for coming, and let's go and have a drink on the third floor. Thank you.